All right, so to today's Democrats, policy is irrelevant, and that's why Trump voters are enthusiastic about his potential return to office. But to the lefties, Trump taking, talking policy is apparently the end of politics as we know it.
We're living through an era in our country's political life right now, which is not politics. And if you want to call it the most romantic possible thing, I think you could call it revolutionary. What we are contending with in our politics right now is a movement that is not doing normal politics and is not competing in normal political terms. They're trying to end the American system of government. They're trying to bring about a revolution against the American system of government and against the United States of America. And in this story, we're the Americans. It's the end of politics.
Yeah, the end of history as we know it. Let's bring in Sentinel Action Fund president and founder and former assistant OMB director Jessica Anderson, along with Fox News contributor Deroy Murdock and journalist and author of Second Class, Batya Ungar-Sargon. Good to see the three of you. Thanks for being here. Batya, let me start with you. There really are no issues. You go through all the basic issues on which Biden can claim any kind of success, whether you're talking about the economy, certainly not the border, foreign policy. You think of what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Ukraine, and our position worldwide, particularly after that G7 conference when he was kind of stumbling over himself. And then you look at what they're focusing on, and that is Donald Trump, who still has a gag order against him, who can't really defend himself when talking about the conviction. And you know that's all Joe Biden's going to be talking about during the debate. If Trump comes in and says something about it, Merchan, the infamous Judge Merchan, could use that against him at the sentencing. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for President Trump, for former President Trump, if Biden sticks on just the I'm going to get Trump message.
I think you guys nailed it in the opening. It's not just that you have one party, one candidate who has a policy record to run on, and another one who has no policy record and thus has to make up all of this nonsense about the threats to democracy. It's that Trump's record is unbelievably popular. It's that Trump is actually, if you just look at the policy, Trump is a unity candidate. He is running a consensus campaign, and that is the biggest threat to the Democrats that they can imagine, and therefore they have to whip up this narrative about threat to democracy, because he's not a threat to democracy, he's a threat to Democrats.
And it's interesting because I feel this time around, I'm feeling a lot of those undertones that we saw in 2016. People feel forgotten about. They feel like they haven't been heard. They feel like when they complain about kitchen table issues, nobody cares. And he's saying, I care. I had policy that I'll re-implement that will change things for you. Yet, Deroy, you were laughing during the Rachel Maddow soundbite. It's hard not to laugh when she goes with that sort of line because they've got nothing else to talk about. He's been doing a great job of punching at the issues, kind of getting rid of some of the other stuff that people don't always love about his personality and realizing I can leave that over here, stick to the issues, and I'll probably win.
He's been doing that. And I was laughing at Rachel Maddow talking about how it's the end of democracy, it's the end of our society.
The end of the world.
End of the world. They've talked about concentration camps for journalists. Trump's not talking about anything remotely related to this. He's talking about making the Trump tax cuts permanent, but bringing the corporate tax from 21% down to 20 or maybe 15, sealing the border, which is wide open, as we all know. And he had a great idea last week, which is ending and repealing the tax on tips. Yeah. And boy, what a beautiful blue-collar working class issue. This isn't helping the rich people with their helicopters, their yachts, and their ski houses. There's regular folks who are making tips as waiters, waitresses, and bartenders. And I don't hear anything about that tip tax repeal that ties into somehow opening concentration camps.
Right.
Jessica, I want to move over to this. Over the past 3.5 years, the country's watched as Joe Biden stumbled and kind of bumbled his way across the world stage, looking confused, offering nonsensical word salad answers, very often embarrassing the entire nation in the process. But according to the White House, these impressions were somehow edited or manipulated. Listen.
Instead of talking about the president's performance in office, we're seeing these deep fakes, these manipulated videos.
And of course, Biden's lapdogs in the media, they're working overtime to downplay America's concerns.
You have the same news organization doing what Jonathan just said, deliberately lying about a shot, cropping it in a way they know they're lying.
There's a growing and insidious trend in right-wing media, broadcast, print, and social media. It is to take highly misleading and selectively edited videos of President Biden directly from Republican National Committee social media accounts and then use those videos to spread messages virally to cast doubt on President Biden's fitness for office.
That clip comes just days after the far right used selectively edited video to claim that Biden was wandering off like some dementia patient from other world leaders during the G7.
The president, who is only 3 years older than his Republican challenger, but is accused of being too old for his job, has now flown across the Atlantic 3 times in the last week.
Jessica, those videos, the G7 and the Juneteenth freeze, were not edited. They are telling you something that is just not true. And Anderson Cooper was saying on CNN, they were all saying it's edited, selectively edited. You heard MSNBC. Deepfakes. They were not edited, period.
Yeah, I think this entire moment that the Democratic Party is having is one based on fear. Fear of what happens if President Trump wins, that's what they're running on, and fear if Joe Biden gets out in front of the American people and continues to act like that. Video after videos that are unedited are moments of our president, our nation's leader, who is falling apart. And as a result, his campaign is in total disarray. They're not in key battleground states. They're not working the polls the way that they normally would from a Democratic strategist standpoint at this point in the cycle. So what does that mean? Well, they're going back to this fear tactic because that's all they have. They can't put Biden on stage. He can't even make it across the stage. He has to literally have former President Obama carry him and hold his hand to move across the stage. I mean, this is a big problem for the Democratic Party. They know it. And I think we're all going to be watching this next week at the debate. And it's really no surprise to me, guys, that they're actually still negotiating the debate terms, right. And we're 1 week out from the former president and the current president battling each other.
And the theme that I see here, Batya, really is that when they don't like what's actually happening, they gaslight the American public. So whether you bring it back to the kitchen table issues and inflation, they tell you it's not happening, don't believe your eyes, this is not real what's happening at the grocery store, or if you're watching that video, this has been completely edited, don't believe your eyes. You know, we're going to tell you what's right and what you should believe. It's really incredible, but people are smarter than that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they don't have the luxury of not being, right? When you have $34 in your bank account and 4 children to feed, and a bunch of millionaires on cable news are telling you, why don't you see how great this economy is? It's disgusting. And you just do not have the luxury of being like, maybe I'll believe them instead of my lying eyes. No, the American people know what's up.
Meanwhile, Deroy, tonight you have a star-studded, another one of these star-studded events for Biden, including the Clintons, including Terry McAuliffe. He's apparently one of the co-hosts of this, the former governor of Virginia who was trounced by Governor Youngkin on the issue of education.
Right.
It wasn't just on personalities. He tried to glad hand his way through it, Terry McAuliffe did. But if they go back to the old Terry McAuliffe method of campaigning, I think they lose. Americans want answers to the problems they're facing now.
Yeah, Terry McAuliffe got himself in huge trouble. I think it was during a debate where he said something along the lines of, we don't need parents telling us how to teach their kids, or words to that effect. And that blew up in his face in the middle of all the debate about parents' rights and parents going to school board meetings and complaining about how their kids are being taught critical race theory, et cetera. So if he's going to be in there pushing sort of a high-handed, aloof kind of campaign style, that's not going to do Biden any kind of favors at all.
I want to get to this as well. The Senate Homeland Security Committee holding a hearing on Capitol Hill with the goal of finally figuring out where COVID originated. David?
But the guy possibly at the center of all, Dr. Anthony Fauci, he's out trying to cash in on his new book, and the media, well, they're eating it all up.
Are you ever going to retire, you think?
Right now, you know, I may be 83, but I feel like I'm 55. You know, so to me, I don't see any end to it.
I gotta say, you are a spry 83 years old. Have you thought about running for president? No interest whatsoever.
So he lies to the American people, and he gets to go on late night and be hailed as a king. Jessica.
Yeah. Anthony Fauci cashing out after literally destroying and ruining our schools, closing them for 2 years, putting our economy in the tank, is about as rich as late night TV can get. And this is why I think we go back to the conversation of the day, which is policies are going to motivate American voters this November. They see Fauci taking his, celebrity tour across the United States on late night, and they know that that cannot stand again. This next president, President Trump, has to put unelected bureaucrats in the timeout seat, not allowed to dictate major policy. He learned that lesson well from the first administration. So I think that, coupled with, we see the Chevron case coming through SCOTUS, that's going to limit the powers of unelected federal bureaucrats. You're going to see Congress take a larger role as a partner to President Trump. This is all going to be as a backlash to Fauci overreaching and putting our country in disarray during those terrible 2 years.
I got to agree with Rachel Maddow on one thing. It is an incredible moment in American history. I don't think it's the end of history, but it is an incredible moment in American history. Jessica, Deroy, Batya, great to see you.
Great to see
all
you.
three of you.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much for being here. Appreciate it.